Good evening. Thank you for your patience. I can confirm that we are live on YouTube right off the hop. So it appears that the restart has jump-started the YouTube connection. So please just note for those people that are entering the meeting, we are live already. I do thank you for your patience and appreciate your support related to getting that going. So as people enter, please note we are live already. Again, thank you for entering and being patient. I can confirm we are live on YouTube already. So please, just as we are entering the meeting and we are getting resettled, I appreciate your patience. We will move as quickly as we are able to get everybody promoted. Thank you again for your assistance. Councillor Davey, just as you're entering, I just wanted to let you know we are live. I thank you for your patience. We are moving over attendees as fast as we are able, but the meeting is live if you are ready to go.
Okay, very good. If I could just get everyone to turn on their cameras. There we go. That would give us quorum. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of Finance and Corporate Services, where we will hear from the public with respect to the 2022 budget process. Kicking off the evening is going to be someone who I understand is relatively new to the city and the finance department. Ms. Debbie Andrade will walk us through the public consultation. Ms. Andrade, when you're ready, assuming that you're in on the call, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Davey and members of committee. Tonight, I have a short presentation to share with you on the 2022 budget public input process. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, slide show, please. Next slide, please. The ways for citizens to connect to the budget remain unchanged from previous years, with the primary form of engagement being the online budget survey. We have seen from previous years that this seems to be the most effective form of engagement with our citizens. And as of this evening, we have had 167 responses to the survey. This launched on November 5th and will close on December 6th. The findings of the survey will be summarized into themes and reported back to Council on Thursday, December 16th. Additionally, the city released the operating capital budget information on the city's website and shared budget information using social media. And again, delegations will be heard this evening. Next slide, please. The budget survey includes questions similar to those asked in previous years. However, we hope to generate more participation and interest from citizens with the capital investment options available to Council through the $1 million in unallocated funding. The next few slides will show the actual survey questions posted online through Engage Kitchener. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The first couple of questions will capture general information such as where citizens are getting their budget information, which will help us for future public engagement. Next are about the proposed tax rate increase of 1.9% and if citizens believe this approach strikes a reasonable balance. Next slide, please. We also ask about the proposed water utilities rate increase of 2.2% and if this approach strikes a reasonable balance. Next slide, please. Next, we ask citizens to weigh in on different investment options Council has for the $1 million in capital funding that has not yet been allocated. Next slide, please. To recap, the three items for Council consideration include funding for the creation of an affordable housing reserve, addressing the city's facilities infrastructure gap, and community trails. Next slide, please. Additional information on the three options are available online as well. Next slide, please. Finally, in relation to the strategic plan goals, we ask citizens to share any other areas in our community they feel should be a priority in the 2022 budget. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time this evening, and this concludes my presentation on the 2022 budget input process.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. I don't anticipate there will be any questions in that. I'm not seeing any from the members of committee, so we'll get right into the delegations. A reminder to all people that will be appearing as a delegate this evening, you do have 5 minutes to make your presentation, after which members of Finance Committee here will have the opportunity to ask questions for clarification, etc. Up first from the chamber, many of us are quite familiar with Mr. McLean. When you're ready, sir, I did have on my notes that Mr. Sinclair will join you. Well, there he is. Good evening, Art. Whenever you guys are ready, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair Davey and Mayor Verbanovic and Council for the opportunity to address Council on the 2022 Kitchener budget. Our chamber is extremely grateful and appreciative of your ongoing financial support for the cities, from the cities of Kitchener and Waterloo, to continue our local efforts at recruiting and attracting new family doctors into our communities. This year, I have also have to commend staff and city council members for their extraordinary efforts to assist local small businesses in navigating the maze of assistance programs and challenges that owners have faced, not only financially, but otherwise, to navigate their way through the current COVID pandemic. 25 years ago, the Greater KW Chamber assumed a local leadership role in the recruitment and retention of family doctors and related health care professionals. A full-time chamber staff position was created in 2006, and subsequently we have been securing new recruits at approximately one family physician per month since that time. Important to note, this is a community initiative. We do this on behalf of and with the entire community. There are many chambers and boards of trade across Ontario that participate in local family physician recruitment activities, and I'd say our chamber has served for many years as the model to follow for continued success. It's an activity and program of which we can all be proud. Despite pandemic-related restrictions and other factors, we have been able to maintain those recruiting efforts directed toward physicians across Ontario to consider Waterloo Region as an ideal location to reside, raise a family, and establish their own medical practice. A week ago, on Saturday, November the 6th, we virtually conducted our annual Family Medicine Resident Weekend and hosted 25 residents from across the province. Local family physicians, business leaders, and community leaders joined chamber volunteers to showcase our community for future practice opportunities. The 23rd annual weekend is our major recruitment initiative of the year to engage young physicians and promote the community as a welcoming and attractive center of medical excellence. The event was virtual for the second year in a row. However, it still gives residents the opportunity to connect with local physicians and learn about current practice opportunities. It's a tremendous event for first and second year family medicine residents to get better acquainted with the community and our healthcare families. Residents attending our annual weekend have often established local practices, resulting in a total of over 260 new physicians since 1998. And our chamber continues to look forward to our future relationship with local municipalities as we do address this as one of the major local healthcare challenges. With significant population growth anticipated over the next 3 years and pending bubble of retirements of existing physicians across, not only here in Waterloo Region, but across Ontario, municipalities require a collective and effective utilization of local resources to maintain a competitive position in the recruitment of healthcare professionals. We are and have been moving in that direction. Our chamber members have also benefited from many supports through your council and the city to assist them in surviving and recovering from the pandemic. Since the early days of COVID-19 in March of 2020, the chamber and many partners throughout the community have encouraged local residents to support local business through curbside delivery, takeout, and other contact-free options. City of Waterloo or City of Kitchener and the Waterloo Region Small Business Center websites have been valuable resources of quick information for business owners seeking immediate guidance on everyday challenges for their operations. And we hope those services can continue and expand as we move forward. As chair of the Business and Economic Support Team of Waterloo Region, I'm aware of the significant efforts provided by staff from the City of Kitchener and other municipalities in planning for our recovery and ensuring we emerge from the pandemic in a stronger position than before March 2020. All economic factors, including investment attraction, employment, and office vacancies, point to Waterloo Region leading Canada out of our stay-at-home and lockdown orders. And this could not have been accomplished without the spirit of collaboration and cooperation with which will continue long, we hope will continue long after we emerge from COVID-19. As a reminder, I'll do just a quick public service announcement. As a reminder to businesses and organizations in Waterloo Region, please, we know the Kitchener staff have worked closely with us and in promoting chambercheck.ca, which provides free services and programs for businesses and organizations across Waterloo Region, including free rapid screening kits, free medical grade masks from Eclipse Automation, our local ambassador program, as well as online training programs. So I'll leave it there. Happy to answer any questions. Want to thank again council and Kitchener staff for your commitment to our citizens and businesses, and we look forward to working together on for our collective benefit. And I'll leave you with this, which I always say: stay positive, test negative. If you haven't already, get vaccinated, because we're stronger together. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ian, for that presentation. And just before we continue, did you draw the short straw? You're speaking on behalf of yourself and Art, or is he just here to answer questions, or did Art have comment as well?
No, if Art has anything to add, he usually does, but I was unsure. I have another meeting, but I've delayed that so I could be here with you today. So Art was my pinch hitter if I had to leave. So we're all good.
Okay, really appreciate that. Art, do you want to make a few comments?
Yeah, just to follow up on the physician recruitment program, one of the things that I think a lot of us aren't aware of is we're kind of the model of this for the province of Ontario. As Ian mentioned, this goes back to about 1998 when we first started discussing this. And I think a lot of you probably remember Mary Sue Fitzpatrick. She came on as a full-time staff person back in 2006 on this. So I think this is a program that we really should be proud of. As we all know, the population of Waterloo Region and Kitchener and cities, the townships are all growing, and the demand for family physicians is going to increase. There's going to be a significant focus on healthcare and healthcare resources. So I think we're in a pretty good position going forward. And, you know, I'd like to thank the City of Kitchener and Waterloo and really the population here for supporting this program all these years, because this is something the Chambers of Commerce don't traditionally take on as a responsibility. We did, and we're quite proud of what we've been able to accomplish over the last 25 years.
Thank you for that, Art. We do have a few questions. First is Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davey, and through you. You know, I can't speak enough of how beneficial this program is. You know, as I represent residents of Ward 6, increasingly I hear from residents who are moving to Kitchener how hard it is in finding a family physician. So whatever we can do from the City of Kitchener perspective, I think it's not enough. And that's my question to Art or Ian, whoever can best answer. Could we do even more than what City of Kitchener does already?
I'll jump in just to say the program we have it runs all year round. We do have our first weekend in November is our focal point where we engage and host virtually the last couple of years, but usually host 25 or more family physician residents, first and second year residents. We have to understand that it is a collective effort. It's not just business. It's not just municipalities. We're competing with every municipality across Ontario, across Canada, and frankly, throughout North America. So family doctors are certainly, and our primary care is a huge issue for every municipality and every jurisdiction across North America. So I think what we do, and as far as I'm concerned, when we are hosting family residents, whether on the weekend or all throughout the year, we always reach out to elected officials or business leaders to try and put our best foot forward, and we'll continue to do that. But the program that we have, we are we're very fortunate that it's a well-oiled machine. The residents all know that in first and second year residents that this is a program, so they get to see this region. I would say some of the things that both the region and the city of Kitchener, I've said this before, have put us in good stead. Investing in the School of Pharmacy, the School of Medicine. Many of the residents, even if it's for a short while, have been in Waterloo Region to do a study program or through the university. They've been here, they've worked at the hospitals. That is a huge leg up on us over many municipalities. But we do compete, and so we will continue as we figure out new and different ways to, as you say, put our best foot forward. And if there's more we can do, you can bet we'll be in touch with council and with Dan and the staff, because it's an incredibly important project or program that we run, and we'll be doing that. There was a time, and I know some may point this out. I mean, we had big goals about when I started the chamber 11 years ago, that we said within 5-6 years we hope to be on top of this and have enough family physicians. Problem is we're growing so fast. We have in this area quite a number of doctors that are retiring, and so when you put all those things together, I guess it's a good problem to have, is that we're a place that people want to be, but it puts pressure on the programs and the services like family physicians that we know are incredibly important to both recruit and retain people here in Waterloo Region.
Thank you, Ian. And that's why I was asking, because that urgency is even more, because our growth is absolutely superseding our expectation. So I'll just, it's not a question further, I'll just finish out with saying, one of the things that does set us, I think, above many other municipalities, for the city of Kitchener at least, it's the strength in economic development and the willingness of this council of how much it's done in investing in small business. And
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Up next, we have Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Sorry, the wrestling moves of Councillor Singh are kind of hard to follow there. Ian and Art, thank you so much for coming in tonight. And I really think that the innovation that you've been doing by having kind of started the physician recruitment campaign so many years ago, along with things like the Chamber Check campaign, which has gone across the province, has been really incredible. And I'm wondering if you think that we can kind of link the things that you've been doing in terms of that physician campaign to some of the movement that we're seeing in terms of really having a health innovation network here, and really kind of moving forward on that front, because I think that we're making incredible strides there, but I think it's all kind of come together. But I'd like your opinion on that.
Yeah, first I would say I've fallen out of my chair several times during the last 18 or 20 months. So if that's what it was, you're not the first one, Councillor Singh, but just when you're on Zoom, sometimes you lose your balance there. I'd say that there's a lot of things coming together, and I would echo that the Chamber hosts the physician recruitment part for family physicians. You know that part of the resources that the city of Kitchener puts towards is with the hospitals for the specialists, which is another huge piece of the puzzle. And I think as we look to invest in innovation and the medical center of excellence that Kitchener is spearheading and is going to be part of the region, I think there's all the more reason for us to keep in touch about what are the pieces that are pieces that are on the board, and make sure they're as integrated as possible. The physicians, that's the way they actually practice now, is they want to be together in bigger groups. They want to know that when for their patients that they have referrals available for specialists and other diagnostics. So I think it's something for us we'll continue to be active listeners of what's going on, and working with folks like the university and the city and economic development folks to kind of make sure all the pieces fit together.
That's great. Thank you.
Very good. And finally, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Ian and Art, thanks so much for coming in to speak with us tonight. I just wanted to get your take on our focus and budgeting of our economic recovery with Make It Kitchener 2.0. What that means from the Chamber of Commerce. What your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so and Art can chime in as well. I mean, one of the things that we've discovered is, as you know, whether it's Communitech and the work that they were doing with the University of Waterloo and Manulife on future of work and learning, which started before the pandemic, and then we all discovered on March the whatever it was 19th, 2020, that the future was here. We were all having to work remotely, having to work in a different way. Those things aren't going to stop. So in fact, they're going to need to move forward at even faster paces. So things like the Digital Main Street program that Communitech brought together and helping small businesses, making sure they were digitally ready, whether it's websites or e-commerce. We need to continue to ramp up those things if we're truly going to be a tech-first community. And so from an economic development perspective, we're trying to do things differently and frankly, with more cooperation and collaboration. And so I'm very pleased with the work that all of the economic development organizations, Communitech, Explore Waterloo, Cambridge Chamber, ourselves, as well as, who am I missing there? Waterloo Economic Development, Tony and his gang, is putting all of our efforts together because it takes all of us to speak on behalf of business, but also then partner with municipalities, civil society, academia to make sure that we that we can actually continue on in what the economy, you call it Kitchener 2.0, but for us it's what's next in the economy. So I think everyone has a role to play in that, and we're pleased that I think that there has been more cooperation and collaboration and innovation in the last 20 months than I think there has been in a long time before that. And we were reasonably good at it before. I think necessity is the mother of invention, and or whatever that saying is. We needed to do it, and we're doing it more now, and we'll need to understand that to be competitive in a global environment, we need to continue to do that. I don't know, Art, is there anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I think this is more in line with Councillor Johnson's question. I recall, years ago when the medical school and the pharmacy school were both established in downtown Kitchener, and Rod Regier, who was then the director of economic development, we had a lengthy discussion about, gosh, we should have more pharmaceutical manufacturers here in Waterloo Region because we have a pharmacy school. Well, that's still important, but over the last 10 years, we've just realized how big the life science, biotech, medical economy is here in Canada and Ontario. There's just so much. We go into diagnostics, imaging. There's just so many potential opportunities here for us in Waterloo Region because of the University of Waterloo, Constitution College, Wilfrid Laurier, where they're focusing on selling the products that they make at the University of Waterloo. So we have so much potential there, and I think certainly the city of Kitchener, I think, is on the right track. There's global opportunities here that are immense, and hey, I'm excited about it. I think everybody should be. Coming out of the pandemic, where there's going to be a higher focus than there ever has been on healthcare. I think we're pretty well positioned, probably better position than we were 10 or 15 years ago. So moving forward, we're in great shape.
That's great to hear. That's no further questions, Councillor Schneider? Good, okay. Mayor Verbanovich.
Thanks, Chair Davey, and thanks, Ian and Art, for coming in today. And presenting. This has been a very successful program for many years, and it's been great for us to be able to partner with you because it's so important both from a recruitment point of view, but also in terms of quality of life and retaining talent in our area. I didn't want to pass up on this opportunity since you're here in person today, and I'll say the same to Tony when he comes on a little later on, is just to say our thanks, Ian, to both of you for your work on Best WR over the past 20 months, in addition to your normal day-to-day responsibilities, assisting with that through the pandemic has certainly helped to ease the burden on our businesses. So just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. So thank you.
Thank you for that. And I would say no one's doing this alone. I think the formation of Best Waterloo is a great development for the region. It further solidifies that we all have to work together. And frankly, I've always worked closely in the 11 years I've been at the Chamber with the Cambridge Chamber, and we're working closer and closer together on some of these programs like Chamber Check. It takes a lot of great people. The staff are the ones that really, at both our chambers, are the ones that make this run with Art and the rest of the gang that I have. So appreciate that, and we'll make sure we take that back to both Best Waterloo and to the chamber staff. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, that concludes all the questions that we have for you. Thanks again for taking the time and for the work you're doing for the community here in the business community.
Thank you.
Take care now. Okay, the next delegation we have is from the Social Development Center, Waterloo Region, Ms. Petrovich and Ms. Spronk.
Right. Alex is going first.
Good evening. Go ahead when you're ready.
There she is.
Through the chair, I am having some difficulties moving her over. Zoom apparently is not being kind to me this evening. Alexandra, you should have access to your microphone, so you should be able to begin your presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Now I suppose you can hear me and see me because I was talking to you for already a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, we can,
Never
we
mind,
can only
I'm
hear
kidding.
you now. Okay.
Thanks. Well, absolutely, Chair Davy and members of the committee, thank you for this evening's conversation about the funding or the partnership proposal from the Social Development Center to contribute to the implementation of our well-aligned goals. Among the strategic directions we keep in common, absolutely is the equity work and the housing work. We're able to advance side by side thanks to, I cannot stress this enough, unique understanding built over the last few decades where we do not work well because we agree on all accounts, but because we accept and expect that we need diverse, divergent voices and opinions to move ahead. The first part of the proposal, can it be a bit quieter? Thank you. The first part of the proposal you received presents the scope and the depth of the work Social Development Center does to advance important causes shaped by underserved communities in Kitchener. So the second part, you would see two elements of this partnership proposal, and one of them is a major program. We have to address equitable participation of underrepresented groups, which is the Civic Hub. It's currently a collective of 30 grassroots partner organizations and groups where we provide not only free, safe space, but ongoing support, knowledge sharing, resources, financial sponsorships for, well, underfunded, racialized, and marginalized communities. Civic Hub is also the well from which we draw lived experience, knowledge that feeds into many consultations and engagement projects led through the city, and will continue to do so in the municipal election year, in the future equity work, and also in support of the housing strategy with the pilot project Lived Expertise Working Group. This is about 15 hours only part-time Civic Hub staff that would require funding of $27,700 in the next year's budget. Our second contribution is specific to eviction prevention, to the housing stability for Kitchener residents. It is also our organization's response to the mapping of displacement research on evictions for renovations, demolitions, discrimination due to discrimination or harassment that is actually filling the gaps in existing eviction prevention work for the most underserved groups, Black, Indigenous, immigrant, refugee, LGBTQ two-spirit populations, with two peer workers who identify as members of the communities. By connecting those facing evictions connecting them to existing services, offering holistic and ongoing peer support, our workers effectively contribute to preservation of the remaining affordable units in the city and to preventing more people becoming homeless. And again, additional 20 hours to add to the existing 12 to 15 hours per week for this massive work would be valued at about 35,500 in the budget for the next year. Thank you, Barb.
Oh, thanks so much, Alexandra, and good evening, everyone. And again, our thanks for this opportunity to address our requests. As Alex has described our two requests, it now falls to me as the co-chair of the board of directors to provide a few financial details. Request number one, funding to support the work of the Civic Hub in the City of Kitchener. Our partner organizations in the Hub make contributions, but these are small grassroots organizations with very shallow pockets, and we cannot ask them to pay more. The bulk of the money supporting this shared platform that we work with comes from donations and fiscal sponsorships. These are needed to cover rent, staff time, insurance, and so on. Our concern as a board is that it's really our staff who are paying these costs in their health, in their relationships, in their work-life balance, due to the overtime hours they are devoting to the Hub. As a board, we are very concerned about this. Demand is growing for the community connections that the Hub is generating, but funds available are not. Request number two, funding for our work in eviction prevention in the City of Kitchener to help people who are precariously housed to stay in their homes. Our current staff members paid for only 12 to 15 hours of work with Kitchener-based renters, as Alex has already described. And although she is incredibly skilled and experienced, she is also overwhelmed by the extent of the need she is uncovering. The United Way, and we're very grateful for this, is currently funding this project and is likely to extend funding for another year, but they have told us they will not increase the number of hours. So we are asking you, as our major partner in the fight to preserve existing affordable units, to support this work and ensure that together we can keep as many Kitchener residents as possible from losing their homes. So thank you very much, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Opening the floor to questions by members of committee. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you both, Barb and Alexandra, for coming in this evening. So I had a couple questions. How would you, first of all, summarize the outcomes of the projects that you have on the go, the Civic Hub and the City Hub, and the eviction prevention and the affordable housing? Like, are you finding positive outcomes?
We are finding positive outcomes, and we are overwhelmingly hearing that the gaps we identified not only exist and are critical for the residents and tenants, they are also critical for other service providers, as within their mandates, either in social services, housing services, the parameters with which they operate would not allow for such a holistic and ongoing support to the most vulnerable people who do not speak the language, are not comfortable within the systems, and do not have capacity to navigate supports, all the way to service providers who, working in their particular mandate, family supports, income supports, they do not have either capacity or enough support themselves to deal with this combined income and housing impacts on the pandemic, you name it, multiple issues that people face, but housing remains one of the major ones on which all other supports in their life actually rely on.
Speaking about housing, can you just explain for those that weren't part of the housing strategy, the role that the Social Development Center played in that committee?
Our role primarily was to ensure that we have lived experience representation and that those experts have ongoing support in the background, right? Because the meetings were with numerous participants in an environment where they would not feel at all times comfortable. There is a lot of work and information that's being shared because we understand and know that their voices are far more valuable than our work, even though we do have a number of people with lived experience on our staff. Actually, the voices of the people are, we work with community connectors. We need to promote them to the front, and we would provide our expertise in our work and research, but this other role is extremely important to make sure that they have capacity for ongoing sustained participation, and absolutely incredible collaboration again in 2021 as members of the engagement subcommittee. Through the process in 2020, we went into a year-long, right, planning how we can make the participation even more sustained and successful moving forward through the pilot project Lived Expertise Working Group. We work together from creating funding proposals to ensure funds for the work with the Social Development Center, all the way to working on what would approach look like, what would be the pre-recruitment and recruitment of representatives of different groups look like. So it was, again, a full year of making sure that people with lived expertise can contribute to what this process would look like next year.
I have one more question, if that's okay with Chair Davey.
Certainly.
Yeah, so if you didn't get this money, what would that look like for you or for your organization?
Well, to tackle this, and Alex is certainly going to kick in on this as well. We're going to lose a lot of our capacity to generate all these connections that have provided the people with lived experience and expertise that Alex has just talked about, who have made such a vital contribution to the strategic plan for housing in the city of Kitchener, and will continue to do so thanks for our continuing relationship, and thanks to our partners on that committee. We have now substantial funding that's going to help support that work for the coming year. But we have no funding for the core group, this group of 30 plus small grassroots organizations who are providing these people with lived expertise. In terms of funding for the eviction prevention work, I think the answer there is simple: more people will lose their homes. It's as clear as that.
If I just can add that some of the examples actually where, again, our work was connected, thanks to the Civic Hub in 2019-2020, we were able to support in its emergence work of a better tent city, or to support sustained flow through fiscal sponsorship for the land back, and other organizations that are coming from the East African Coalition cohort and so forth. That is, besides the housing, I think one of the most important pieces from the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, which is we have to recognize that it will take us all serious efforts to make sure that resources we have are shared with traditionally, historically underserved and underfunded communities in City of Kitchener. And this is the work that puts some of them on a map, and with different funders. They were able to acquire seed funding or funds for their activities that they would not otherwise be able to reach. And when you said how would that impact us, my first thought, oh, how would it actually impact those groups and those communities? That was my first reaction. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Marsh.
Hello, thanks for joining us this evening and sharing your proposal. I'm just curious, what other organizations that also work in the field of homelessness and housing have you been able to collaborate with other organizations and or with the region till now?
Absolutely. And the turning point was the start of the pandemic, when the crisis was on everybody's mind, and looking ahead, what will happen, particularly to people who are unsheltered and sleeping rough. We have been for the second year part of the region's housing stability table, and collaborating closely in so many respects in that regard, in terms of eviction prevention specifically, right? Mm-hmm. We have close collaboration with the Community Legal Services and Lutherwood. And each of those have very specific eligibility criteria to receive duty counsel, for example, before the hearings. Hearings at Landlord Tenant Board are becoming increasingly inaccessible. We're also providing that support for residents. There isn't enough of what exists, and we identified and verified and have agreements or protocols with particular Community Legal Services where their role starts, and all the things that need to happen before residents would be ready to receive counsel, because they're also overwhelmed in their supports, whereas Lutherwood is enormously important in the moment, very specific a point in a trajectory of someone who is, for example, losing housing due to arrears, and the eligibility is not insured.
Sorry to interrupt. So, yes. So the services that you're offering and providing would you say that they are similar in any way, or are they complementary to the other organizations that are offering services?
Yes, complementary and do not exist otherwise, and are recognized as important and necessary for people to reach to the point where the others become useful.
Okay, and then one other question. So does the region also provide some funding to help with your efforts as yet?
In terms of eviction prevention, we are in number of conversations, and at this point there is no funding from the region for this particular peer supported work.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Thank you, ladies, for coming out tonight. I have just a question for you. You had mentioned that you get support from United Way, or you are getting support from United Way. Have you applied for other grants from other sources?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we that's a big part of our job, is applying for grants. As yet, no success. We hope to be working with the City of Waterloo in eviction prevention work there, but only on the basis of a very small grant. I think Alex is more up to date than I am on where we stand in terms of the proposals that we've made and which have been successful or not.
Our project has started in May, and establishing partnerships with over 50 agencies has been the initial work, and setting in place those referral protocols and collaboration. And this part of the year is absolutely, with some of the results going back to both City of Waterloo and City of Cambridge having conversations, but none of them is as close to our work as City of Kitchener at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions. I just have one just to follow up actually on Councillor Marsh's question. Do you intend to appear before the region and make the same request?
There is an intention. We are formulating what that request would be on our end.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm sorry, specifically the same request you're making of the City of Kitchener should, I'm just trying to understand. This isn't my area of expertise. I'm just one of my questions that I'll have with staff later on is the jurisdictional one. So my thinking would be that the jurisdiction is primarily the region of Waterloo. So I'm just curious if you would be approaching the region asking for the funding for the same thing that you're asking for here.
Well, in that area, they have a very particular structure in place right now through Lutherwood as a centralized. The work that we do is, as I said, a response to mapping of displacement and displacement study and mitigating that in most immediate ways we can today. Altering or changing the structure with the region would take more time than either our workers or people we support have. So we will try, but it is not a given.
And in terms of the core funding for Civic Hub, frankly, most of the people with lived expertise in that we are identifying and recruiting and supporting and joining boards have been working with the City of Kitchener, not with the region. We anticipate that there will be roles for them on the region, but there have not been yet.
Okay, very good. Thank you both for taking the time to come in this evening. Or
Thank
come in
you.
virtually.
Thank you.
Okay, up next from the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation, there is Tony Lamantia. When you're ready, sir.
Okay, I just made it back. Thank you. I was fading and I ran downstairs to make myself a quick espresso. I'm glad I made it back in time. So I want to thank Chair Davey and the Corporate Services Committee for inviting me back for yet another public budget night. I recall being here December 14th, 2020, talking about an optimistic forecast, even though we were facing, there were, vaccines weren't available yet. We were facing the prospect of Christmas without extended family, and I was certainly not looking forward to not being able to see my own parents, on Christmas Eve, first time in a lifetime. So, unsure about what was happening with the second wave, but the forecast was quite promising. We build our forecast based on qualified projects, timelines, and budgets, and as much as 2020 seems like such a long time ago, it was less than a year since I spoke to the committee. So if you could kindly just flip to slide 3, I'm only going to spend a few minutes on some key slides, and then we'll welcome your questions and commentary. So, as expected, we had a strong year, and we actually had a record year, 16 closed deals, a total investment value of $363 million. Almost 700 new jobs created, 9 were local expansions, 7 were foreign direct investment. The lion's share, two deals together worth about 100 million were in advanced manufacturing, a very healthy percentage in tech and ICT, and a smaller percentage in financial services. Why don't you, if you could kindly flip to the 5 years. So actually, I leave it there, actually, if you can, because, I think the data, you can get lost in the data. Now, if you can go to the slide before, I'm going to talk about a couple of notable new companies. And I think that's important because it brings the service proposition to life. Otherwise, it's just data. It's just numbers that might not mean anything to viewers and to counselors who are keenly watching. So you've heard of Masterclass. So their very first expansion outside of the United States. Masterclass is a very large e-learning company It's where Wayne Gretzky has his classes on kind of leadership and hockey. It's where, I don't even remember the name of that chef, but that cantankerous British guy, it teaches people how to whip up, kind of gourmet dinners very quickly. They, after a lead that we got from Google in downtown Kitchener, engaged with us. We assisted them with, helping to find a local lead, and then we kind of jointly announced their first investment outside of the United States, and it's essentially their Canadian headquarters and engineering headquarters, and they are building out a team in the community focused on Kitchener right now. Another example is EPAM Systems. This is a very large Pennsylvania-based technology firm, and they chose Waterloo region as the place they are locating their first North American digital transformation office. They're in the process of hiring 100 people, will likely grow to 200 in a second phase. We got this lead from our US East Coast lead generation program that the federal government helps to fund. Successfully pitched the value proposition. We supported their launch in April with a blog, made introductions to our tech ecosystem, connected them to partners such as Communitech, University of Waterloo, Conestoga. And one of the things we've been working with them very closely on is helping them with the global talent stream and business immigration. So, and that's transformed into right now supporting them for a local site. So, those are couple of notable examples, both Kitchener-centric, that I wanted to share with the council. If you could kindly go to the 5-year slide, and then I'll try to wrap it up, because if I'm fading, I'm sure some viewers and councilors may be as well. So since inception, we have been able to close 72 qualified deals, which is terrific. Total investment value of about 1.4 million. Over 4,000 jobs created. The interesting thing is, it's pretty much a 50-50 split between local expansions and 37 foreign direct investment deals. Breakdown is also significant. 40% just under in advanced manufacturing, very healthy automotive and auto tech investment. And just across the board, I think the other notable data set I want to leave you with is kind of the balance. 1 year you might have the city of Cambridge landing more capital investment. In 1 year, you could see, as we did last year, there was a lot more notable activity in Kitchener. But over the 6 years, soon to be ending, you could see a very kind of nice balance across the townships, our tri-cities, and it's nice to see that data point reflected like this. Next slide, please. So when we launched our digital marketing practice, I was generally concerned about, would we have enough content? And, there has been so much content that I've been so nicely surprised. Our cluster maps, our blogs, our kind of problem solved approach to, how we work together with our intermediaries, with the big four corporate relocation firms, site selectors, and our partners across not just the United States, but in Europe and our key markets. So that part of the activity has led to some fairly significant metrics as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. So organically, website growth of like almost 30% in the US and 87% overall. The blog has had 66,000 page views. Again, 162% of that organic growth. And we continue to generate healthy upticks in our social media, audience and interactions, and that's the most important thing. And last but not least, any marketing practice has to be very closely tied to sales. And so things like identifying projects with timelines and budgets and handing them off, we call them marketing qualified leads. They were up 1,400% from last year. So overall, really strong year for marketing. Next slide, please. One of the things that I was listening to Ian McLean talking about the standing up the business and economic support team, and the fact that we work very closely with our economic development and related partners. COVID has changed that in some ways, and this slide is useful because this collaboration blueprint has actually been used by organizations at the province federally as kind of like as a template for city regions like Waterloo, where you have 3 cities, 4 townships, and a regional government on kind of who does what and who should take the lead in some cases, then who should act as a supporting partner. And certainly things like, sector cluster development, talent retention, tourism, that's changed dramatically with COVID, and that's something that we've been keenly aware of. Next slide, please. So one of the most important pushes that we have undertaken is, recognizing the digital divide. Like you probably heard Communitech talk about, in the last 11 months, we've had something like 2.2 billion in inward investment. And that's actually more than we've had in venture capital investment in the region of Waterloo in the last 10 years. So last 11 months, more than the last 10 years. But it's very much not been, widespread recovery and widespread kind of ability to kind of stand up companies in the retail and hospitality space. So we have been working with our partners to do whatever we can to support a focus on local companies, because obviously, as many are aware, they were the first companies impacted and are likely going to be the last to recover as we come out of this. Next slide, please. Big focus on talent. Maybe that'll be part of a broader conversation. Maybe just go to the slide on our challenges, and then I'll open it up. So yeah, so, from a when I stand back and I think about the year that we've had, and I look forward to 2022, I think talent attraction and retention continue to be what we hear first and foremost from our anchor companies. A newer issue is that there's now a dearth of investment or shovel-ready sites, and by that I mean we don't have mega sites that are ready for very significant interests, especially if they are to be purchased. There's just not a lot of them. We're going to continue to support local. I think we have to keep a keen eye on trade issues, the Biden, trade agenda with specific regard to the so-called incentives for American-made EVs and union-made EVs could potentially put some anchor companies in Canada at serious risk, and our partners at the APMA are talking about that. And then last but not least, quality of life and cost of living challenges. One of the most exciting opportunities continues to be for downtown Kitchener, the life sciences innovation arena. It took a year, but I remember telling this committee that we were making progress with a fairly significant anchor company, and I'm happy to share that that lease negotiations are finally underway. They started late last week, and so hopefully we'll have more to report to council and to our community very soon on that front. But lots going on, and we're fortunate to have the support of our largest city and its council. And let me open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Tony. There are 3 people in the queue so far, beginning with Councillor Ioannidis.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thanks, Tony, for coming. Throughout your presentation, I noticed that there was just a small focus on arts and culture, and I'm just wondering what is the focus for that moving forward, because to me that seems to be a huge industry that I feel like we keep not looking at and ignoring. So can you please enlighten me on what we are looking at for that industry?
Yeah, it's definitely not something that we would put on ignore. The way I would kind of package it up as a lens is that if you've got to get very specific about whether it's AR, VR innovation, whether it's, movie production studios. And then once you actually pick a lane, it requires a kind of dedicated long-term commitment and a lot of money. Okay, you've got to spend a lot of time in places where, whether it's a Netflix, whether it's kind of in the studios in Los Angeles, and part of the proposition continues to be pitching our assets, and so I'd say looking forward, all we need is one or two anchors, and then you'll likely see more to follow. And you also have to look at the community's strengths. Where when Odyssey Interactive decided to move from Los Angeles to Waterloo Region, we were excited about kind of the building block on that front. But kind of arts and culture is which is one of those areas where you need kind of a dedicated long-term strategy with buckets of money and travel. And I think part of the reason why it hasn't been a primary focus is we just haven't had the deal flow, and that hasn't been made any easier during the pandemic. So that's kind of the most frank answer I can offer.
Okay. Because, everywhere you're looking in Toronto and you're looking at all the others, the industry is just blowing up and there's no space for content creation and everything else. And we seem to have the natural talents for it. And it just feels like we're not making a serious effort in this. And that's just my comments, I guess. Anyways, thanks, Tony.
Yeah, maybe a conversation about what success looks like. Let's kind of define that, because I always find that complex solutions usually have very straightforward complex challenges usually have fairly straightforward solutions, but half the battle is defining the problem, right? And so I think that's worth doing.
Very good. Up next, we have Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Davey. And Tony, thank you for presenting. It's always good to be able to get that annual update about the attraction of talent to our region, as well as new companies. My sister sits on your board, and trust me, I get an earful on a regular basis of the importance of Red Sea and how well you're managing that agency. So thank you. I'm well aware. But on our perspective, what more can we do to ensure that we are creating that landscape where you can attract those larger anchor businesses that have the capacity to grow large or big and higher, especially in the manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. We have to be able to be responsive to all demographics in the hiring continuum, I would say. We've had loss of manufacturing. We need to fill that, or continue to fill that gap. So again, as a region looks at its official plan, what could we do in guiding the region, as well as looking at our own land inventory and making sure that we can bring some more lands available where you can go out and market and attract those businesses?
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Singh, and through the chair. Kitchener has long been a willing host community for manufacturing investment. That's it's got a storied manufacturing history, and we've not had any. I can't think of, certainly when I think about the economic development staff, when I think about planning and bylaw, I remember Lucas Von Arx from Leone when we announced their expansion. And by the way, that's a company that's growing by leaps and bounds. When we announced their expansion in 2018, he said that he never experienced a more business-friendly process, and that if he had to do it in Germany, it would have taken 2 years, right? And so he was very pleased with the support he got from the city of Kitchener. We actually need to be more focused in the talent attraction side of the equation. There are a number of companies, not only in Kitchener, but across the region, that are having major challenges with skilled trades. I recently recommended that the global talent stream be expanded to include some skilled trades, because that's a major issue for companies. And if the ability to focus on a couple of areas of strength, and Kitchener certainly has that, whether it's, companies like Sonova that are very actively involved in hearing aid technology, or audionics, or whether it's the MedTech core downtown, the Medical Innovation Exchange. These are all companies that can actually scale. And the way I like, the best metaphor is keep building the house that kind of is the structure for us to market, and we'll fill it with companies, and that's the promise of the downtown Kitchener innovation arena for life sciences. It's the promise of some of your manufacturing centers, and there's just the other thing is some great stories that really haven't been told throughout the pandemic, Kitchener centric, companies like Woodbridge Foam on Shirley Avenue and their pivot, and Mitchell Plastics, and it wasn't that long ago that they took some very bold steps to expand manufacturing to support the pandemic, and some of these companies continue to do some amazing things. And actually, the new president of Woodbridge, which is a multi-billion-dollar auto parts company, is the individual who led the transformation in Kitchener over the last few years to higher margin, higher value-added production. That's quite a story, right? They promoted him to be the number one.
So Tony, if I can interject, that's great that you're referencing those stories, and that's why I was trying to get some feedback. I think we need to do better in coordinating and highlighting those stories, and I think the effort that this council has made in investing in economic development and the economic recovery programs like Love My Business. So whatever we can do to get that data on a continuous basis from organizations like yourself that can really champion and highlight those success stories, guess what? It creates competition. If someone's doing good, it just ensures that everyone else wants to notch it up their game, and as well as try to advertise how well they're performing in our community and how they're growing themselves. So in that space, let's do more. My time is probably up. I'll just make one other comment quickly. I would love to see Red Sea more at the table when we're looking at a planning policy, as well as when we're looking at an economic development strategy, because we can fine tune exactly what you need us to do, especially because we're putting the tools and the monies there. Not many municipalities are doing that or are capable of it. We are, and that's what we want to utilize. So thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. I'm going to ask more a sort of micro level question.
Sure.
And, when you talk about attracting talent and new businesses to the area, do you work at all with the BIA?
Not so much, because the BIA's focus is retail and small business. That's not a primary area. We did work with the BIA as part of the business and economic support team on the COVID Safe program. We worked with Eclipse Automation on the mask donations, but not so much with the BIA, because we're actively focused on large projects that have a timeline and a budget, and usually the intermediary there is either a global site selection firm, like think about the big four corporate relocation specialists like Deloitte, EY, KPMG, PwC, or a site selection firm or a law firm, or the companies themselves, right? And so the BIAs would typically, and they do, engage more closely on business retention and expansion with the local economic development officer. So they'd work more closely with Corey and Brian, and in Waterloo with Justin and the team there. And that's true in Cambridge as well.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Next I have Mayor Verbenovich, but I don't see him on the screen here. Oh, there he is. Go ahead, you ready?
Thanks. Yeah, just wanted to, now that Tony's on the screen, express my thanks, as I said earlier, to Tony, along with Ian and the others, in terms of their work on Best WR over the past 20 months. I think it's pretty remarkable. Council may want to join in. I know Waterloo EDC will be doing a virtual public information center next week, and so will be an opportunity to highlight some of the things that Tony talked about today and others in the great work that they've done. And there's some exciting things in the works still for all of our communities. So I think that's pretty important. So well done, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Tony, thanks again for coming in. Thanks for all the good work that's being done. Just one thing, I know, attracting business to this area, there's many things that are the deciding factor. And I think one of them in there is the housing options that we have. And we hear stories of, in Silicon Valley where, the jobs are there, but the housing isn't there. And anything that Red Sea can do to, work with the region and the city and all levels of government as we all work together on trying to, make ways and getting some affordable and attainable housing options would be great. Can you speak to that maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I can. It's something that we're really seized with. We're having kind of a very live conversation with the region and some of the city partners on what things that we can actually, a number of initiatives have been tabled, but in the short term, how do we ensure that cost structure and barriers to kind of basic affordability prevent talent from migrating to the region, right? And we've been as a region, the largest, the fastest growing, or among the fastest growing census metropolitan areas in the country over the last 5 years. More net migration than pretty much any community of a similar size. And that's a blessing and a curse. And what COVID has done is it's highlighted this, the fact that in the contact-free economy, a number of large U.S. competitors can continue to hire talent and basically say, we'll pay you what we would pay a Bay Area software engineer, but you can live in the township of Woolwich, and that's okay, right? While you're doing it. So the reverse of that is once and I am optimistic that 2022 will be a lot closer to a normal return to social and economic life, fingers crossed, that the downtown core in Kitchener has a lot of availability. So do different areas within Waterloo region. And I suspect that, total virtual approaches to employment will become much more of a hybrid. And we're actually going to see some folks coming back into the downtown cores within Waterloo region. It just comes down to making sure there's an adequate supply of attainable housing. It's not so much even an issue of affordability. Is it actually attainable? What's the timeline and the new units? And there's a range of options that are on the table, and it's probably the most important question that we have, because I keep getting it, and it's very important not to overpromise and underdeliver when you're making the pitch about coming to Waterloo region and the ability to attract and grow talent. We spend a lot of time helping firms actually to find a local lead. That's very important, especially if it's not a local company. And that is the individual, who will drive local growth and do more hiring and build out the office or the new headquarters. But I'll tell you, one of the things that we're doing that's the most exciting, Councillor Schneider, is rather than, in the past, some of our competitors would focus on an engineering office or an R&D hub. We're actually, we've pivoted so that we're focused on moving entire headquarters. So the founders, the entire operations into Waterloo region, because that brings with it, kind of real net benefit for the community. Canadian controlled public or private corporation with all of the tax benefits that they have, as opposed to just an R&D office, right? And so that's been a key part of our strategy. We're building kind of a template on how to do that. But I think that'll be a stronger proposition for the community brand that Kitchener, that Kitchener has and the region has.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you. Just one question myself, Tony, in the presentation, you went through a little quickly for some of that, which I understand, but I did notice that it looked like the lion's share of investment went to the city of Cambridge, and I don't raise that because I'm jealous or protectionist. I get that, rising tide floats all boats. But is there a rationale for that? Is it largely because they have more available lands? I'm just curious if you ever figured that.
Yeah, so that's in terms of the actual capital investment, they were both manufacturing, and so it was a fairly significant number. But I think it's not just because they have more land, because one of those expansions was Novacol. It's a French multinational, and they are a biomanufacturing company. You might know them as Septidot. There was a fairly large existing expansion. But yeah, certainly, the North Cambridge Business Park and, the Hooplands and some of that growth have driven more capital investment this year. But if you look at kind of the 5-year, you tend to, if you're getting more capital projects, the value will be higher. But if you're getting more, tech and an HQ expansion, the job numbers will be a little higher, but the actual capital investment will be lower. So I would encourage you, obviously that deck is for you to review and share. Look at the 5-year history and you'll see that it's quite balanced, right? And so, 2021 so far has been an anomaly where you had capital projects that were on hold because of the pandemic, right? Suddenly decisions that were on hold were made, and I think Cambridge was definitely the beneficiary of that this year so far.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was just more a point of interest. I was going to actually follow up with that. Councillor Singh already asked a question about what we can do more, but I was curious on that point. And again, just to be 100% clear, I don't think any of us really care if 90% of it goes into Cambridge, because I can't tell you how many constituents of mine, for example, work at Toyota, which is tremendous for them. So anyway, thank you, Tony, for taking the time and answering. You got grilled a little bit of this one, so lots of questions. But
you know what? I always learn kind of what what the tone is and what are the kind of the issues that council cares about, and so I appreciate getting grilled. That's why I'm here.
Okay, well, we're here to cooperate if we can help in any way going forward.
Okay.
Take care. Okay, thank you. The last delegation we have this evening from the African Women's Alliance Waterloo Region, and apologies, I feel like I'm going to butcher her name, but Fadila Balagan.
Yes.
Hello. Was I remotely close with your
Yes.
name? Oh,
Yes.
very good. Thank you.
Good
Okay,
evening, everyone. Okay, yes. Let me just put on the light, so I'll be more visible. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm the mayor and our councillors and the attendees. I'm just here to speak briefly on the importance of the civic hub to many grassroots organizations like ours. The civic hub in the past, over the past 2-3 years that we've been a member of the civic hub, it has really, given us a voice. It has given us a safe space to conduct our many of our activities, like the homework club, the workshops for women, and also to be able to interact with other organizations, other community-based organizations in a safe and proactive way. And I would say many partnerships have come out of that space. Hence my attendance today. I'm not really into politics, but I know that my presence today would add more weight to the importance of why the civic hub should be prioritized by the city of Kitchener. Throughout the pandemic, the civic hub kept the connections amongst over 30 participating organizations, and they are actually always ready to support our initiatives. So one of the very successful partnerships that has come out of the Civic Hub is the Peace for All Canada and the African Women's Alliance partnership, and on many community initiatives like I said, the Homework Support Club for the East African students, the mental health and the mental support for the parents as well. And we have the leadership trainings for the youth, also for the women too. And during the pandemic, we were able as a team with the support of the Civic Hub, to play a very huge role in the vaccine mobilization at the community level. So it was really through the Civic Hub that we were able to do that. Otherwise, we have the capacity, but there was nowhere to channel. There was no channel, to engage more and in more meaningful ways with the diverse community. Also, another initiative that has come out. Another partnership that has come out from the Civic Hub is the African Cultural Cooking, which is a partnership project between the African Women's Alliance and the Kitchener-Waterloo Co-op Kitchen. So since September of last year, we've been able to cook and deliver food to the community. Sorry. So we cook the project is actually, cooking and, serving meals up to 40 to 50 meals to families, that are not going to come out. And it's not, the families, let's be clear, are not on the brink of starvation, or they are really needy, but it was just, we needed to connect with the community. We needed the community to connect with itself during pandemic. And what better way to connect was through food, through, sharing culture, through eating together, having that feeling that somebody will knock on your door and just drop food for you, cook food for you, that, you wouldn't have to, cook, or, just that warm feeling of somebody cared and, knocked on my door to like somebody remembered me and, brought me a meal. So really, it's been very encouraging. And also the Alive group that's kept this talk about the shelter. And for me, I come from a community from the African community, where we have so many working poor, right? They work, but they live from paycheck to paycheck. And things are very tight, and hence, our activities are mostly, based on the grassroots connections and grassroots programs that would, that these families, benefit from. So my attendance again today is to plead and on behalf of the Civic Hub to have it supported fully by the City of Kitchener. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is a couple questions for you, beginning with Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thank you, Fadila, for coming in tonight.
Hi, Councillor Margaret.
Yeah, it's really great to hear from you. And I always think it's really interesting whenever you said, your program where you're cooking and delivering food, and that the community is connecting through food. And you know what? That's what everybody connects over. I always think, like, breaking bread together always brings people together, right? So that's really wonderful. So I'm just wondering, Fadila, in terms of what your ask is. It sounds like you're using. Are you using community center space right now to do that type of thing, or where are you meeting now?
Well, we do I would say thank God, and through community connections, we've been able to create some connections through city, the different community centers. we met at the Victoria Hills Community Center for
Yes.
our, breaking staycation, right? So now we actually, we run our women's program through the Mio Cortland Community Center. But we also, because the space is tight at times, we run some programs at the Civic Hub, especially if the workshops fall on weekends. So we're able to, run programs there. And after the PAC, the joint initiative between PAC and African Women Alliance, the after school program is run primarily at the Civic Hub.
Okay. Yeah, because this is actually a good time for us to be able to mention that there is community center space that is now available for free for community groups, which I think is a really terrific initiative. And I was really grateful to see kind of staff come up with that. So Fadila, in terms of what maybe your, are there things here tonight that you wanted to ask for, or you just kind of wanted to talk about what you're currently doing and that you want that to continue?
Of course, support for if you ask me, I came here to support, the funding for the Civic Hub. But since you've asked me what I want again, so I would say, more fund, like funding for more of our grassroots activities and projects, though we've not actually, the African Women Alliance itself has not, actually, availed itself of other grants from the city, apart from the festival. Apart from the second tier festival fund, we've not been able to avail ourselves, maybe because most of the time we don't get to know, of many of the grants.
Okay. All right. Well, that's great. I'm so glad you came in tonight, Fadila. I'm so happy for the work that your circle's doing at Victoria Hills Community Center for one thing. So thank you so much for coming to present to us tonight.
Thank you so much, Councillor.
Thank you. Another question from Councillor Chapman.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming in. My question has to do with the Civic Hub in particular. So aside from the space that you're able to use for some of your programs, what other supports do you feel you get from the Civic Hub, or do you get from the Civic Hub?
Well, administrative support for Peace for All Canada, and well, the most important is that support that they give to us to be visible, to be visible. They've actually created lots of opportunities for us to be visible in the community, in the work we do. Like I mentioned, it was really through the Civic Hub really, helped us during the COVID, during the mobilization, the vaccine mobilization. They supported our dialogue with the public health, and to the extent that we were recognized as became recognized as one of the very active partners in the community that helped with the vaccine mobilization. Also, the Civic Hub, also gives us the opportunity to meet with other, grassroots organizations. So all this work, well for us. Otherwise, we've been working like donkey, and nobody, there was no way to create awareness for the activities that we do, or recognition. We are not looking for recognition, but we're really looking for help to do more, for the community, and also to be, to be allowed to engage, where it matters, with the right people.
So I mean, that's great. I mean, so you feel that the Civic Hub has facilitated that. So
yes,
it's not just the space; it's the engagement and the services that they provide to organizations.
Yes, and also the financial, because they bring to us all the funding opportunities for those grassroots, for the grassroots organizations that, that might benefit from, those grants.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
I think we lost.
Councillor Marsh, if you want to go next. Councillor Davey just emailed me that he just lost his power at his house. So Councillor Marsh.
Sure, thanks. Who's our vice chair? Kelly.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock, why don't you take over then?
Okay, great. So Ms. Balogun, thank you so much for coming in, and it's really important, I think, to see a diverse range of faces, come to council, and so please come back anytime and invite others to come to give their voices. I want to mention too that I think your group, from what I gather, would probably be a great match for our new grant that we will be rolling out in early 2022 for Black and Indigenous and racialized groups to access city funds. So I hope that you'll be able to watch for that. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great.
We'll look forward to that.
So anyway, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me as well.
Okay, apologies. I lost power there for a second, but I do not see anyone else here in the queue. So thank you very much, Sheila, for taking the time to come in and make your presentation.
Thank you so much. And before I go, Mayor, I got your message about the funding for the new subsidized housing, because I made a comment a while back on the I think you're aware of it, on the panel discussion by the Kitchener-Waterloo Communist Foundation on housing. And I was told your reply to my, my challenge that the housing, about the housing insecurity. So I would like to acknowledge that. Thank you so much. I got your response, and we are looking forward to, having many of that initiative, take place and have families moving. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks, Fadila.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I think that concludes the public input session for budget for 2022. We'll see everyone in a week at council.